A battle-hardened soldier thought he'd seen everything. Until one quiet afternoon in a war-torn village, a little Afghan girl looked up at him, terrified, and whispered, "Don't speak." In that heartbeat of silence, everything changed. A gun clicked, a shadow moved, and seconds later, he realized that tiny whisper had just saved his entire unit from an ambush. But what happens next is what no one saw coming, because her courage made her a target, and his promise to protect her might cost him everything. As danger closes in and orders pull them apart, one soldier must decide, follow his duty or his heart. Can compassion survive in a world built on fear? And how far would you go to repay the child who saved your life? The Humvee's engine rumbled beneath Ben like a tired heartbeat. He pressed his palm against the dusty window, watching the Afghan countryside roll past in shades of brown and gold. 10 days, just 10 more days, until he'd board that transport home. "You counting again, Doc?" Corporal Reyes nudged him from the driver's seat, his grin visible even beneath the dust coating his face. Ben pulled his hand back. "Can you blame me?" "Nope." Reyes shifted gears as they climbed a rocky incline. "If I had a baby girl waiting, I'd be drawing tick marks on my rifle." The other men in the convoy laughed through the radio chatter. Ben smiled, but the ache in his chest deepened. Emma was 3 months old now. 3 months of life he'd missed. 3 months of first smiles and tiny fingers he'd only seen through pixelated video calls. He'd memorized the photos his wife Sarah sent, the way Emma's dark hair curled at her temples, how her eyes crinkled when she yawned. But pictures weren't the same as holding her. Nothing was the same as that. Almost there, Hassan's voice came from the back seat. Their interpreter sat rigid, his weathered hands clasped tight. "The village is just beyond the next ridge." Ben turned. "You seem tense." Hassan's jaw worked. "There was fighting here last week. Not far. Taliban ambushed a supply truck." He paused. "People are frightened. They don't know who to trust anymore." "We're just delivering medicine," Reyes said, "and some toys for the kids. Nobody shoots Santa Claus, right?" Hassan didn't smile. The convoy slowed as they approached the village. Mud brick homes clustered together like they were huddling for warmth. Smoke rose from cooking fires. Ben could smell bread baking mixed with dust and diesel fuel. "Hearts and minds," Reyes muttered. "Whole lot of hearts. Whole lot of minds." Ben grabbed his medical bag and the canvas sack filled with vitamins, bandages, and small toys they'd collected from care packages. A few stuffed animals, some candy. It wasn't much. But out here, small things mattered. The Humvees parked near the village square. Really just a cleared patch of dirt between buildings. Within moments, children began to appear. Cautious at first, then braver. A boy with a gap-toothed smile. Twin girls in faded dresses. A teenager with curious eyes. Ben knelt in the dirt, opening his bag. "Hey there," Hassan translated, his voice gentle now. The children crept closer. Ben handed out vitamin packets, showing them how to take one each day. He wrapped a scraped knee. He gave a stuffed bear to the twin girls, who clutched it between them like treasure. Their laughter was the first pure sound he'd heard in weeks. Reyes stood nearby, rifle held low, watching the perimeter. But even he was grinning. "You're good at this, Doc. Just doing the job. Nah, this is different. You actually give a damn." Ben did give a damn. That was the problem. He cared too much in a place that ground caring people down to nothing. He'd seen too many injured, held too many hands as they went cold, watched too many mothers weep over sons who wouldn't come home. He was so tired. But here, kneeling in the dirt with children who smiled despite everything, he felt something almost like hope. These kids didn't choose this war. They just wanted to play, to feel safe, to have a chance. He thought of Emma, wondered what kind of world she'd grow up in. A small boy tugged his sleeve. Ben handed him a piece of candy and ruffled his hair. The boy ran off, laughing. Then Ben saw her. A little girl stood in a doorway across the square. She couldn't have been more than 8. Her dress was patched and dusty. In her hands, she clutched a torn red scarf, worrying the frayed edges between her fingers. She didn't approach like the others, just watched. Her eyes were dark and solemn, too solemn for a child, like she'd seen things no one her age should see. Ben met her gaze, tried to smile, warm, reassuring. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Not quite a smile, maybe recognition, maybe fear. Then she turned and disappeared into the shadows of the doorway. Ben stared at the empty space where she'd been. Something about her stillness unsettled him. The weight in her eyes, the way she'd looked at him, not with curiosity like the other children, but with something deeper, something almost like warning. The lantern flickered. Ben rubbed his eyes and stared at the half-finished report in front of him. Words blurred on the page. Hostile fire. Defensive positions. 0 casualties. The standard language of war felt hollow tonight. He could hear Reyes and the others in the mess tent nearby, their voices carrying through the canvas walls. Someone laughed. The smell of reheated MREs drifted on the evening air. Ben set down his pen and looked toward the cluster of smaller tents where local families rested under American protection. Somewhere in that dim row, Amina slept beside her father. The girl's whisper still echoed in his mind. "Don't speak." 2 words. That's all it took to save 6 lives. He picked up the pen again, then set it down. The report could wait. Footsteps approached. Ben looked up as Hassan ducked through the tent flap, his face pale in the lantern light. The interpreter's hands trembled as he removed his cap. "Sergeant Turner." Hassan's voice was barely above a whisper. "May I speak with you?" Ben stood immediately. "Of course. Sit down." Hassan shook his head. "No time for sitting." He glanced over his shoulder, then stepped closer. "The militants. They know." Ben's stomach tightened. "Know what?" "About Amina." Hassan's eyes glistened. "That she warned you." Word spreads quickly in the village. Too quickly. He pressed his palm against his forehead. "My daughter. She is 8 years old. 8. And now they call her a traitor." The weight of those words settled like stones in Ben's chest. "Hassan, I'm so sorry." Ben reached out, gripping the man's shoulder. "We'll protect you. Both of you. I promise." "Promises." Hassan's voice broke. "I believed in promises once. I believed teaching children would build peace. I believed working with Americans would bring safety." He looked directly at Ben. "Now, I believe in fear. Fear is what keeps my daughter alive." Ben felt his throat tighten. "Let me talk to my CO, Captain Miller. He can arrange something. Extra security. Maybe relocation." Hassan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Relocation? Where? The Taliban has eyes everywhere. They will find us." "Not if we move fast." Ben grabbed his jacket. "Wait here." He pushed through the tent flap and strode across the compound. Captain Miller's quarters sat at the far end, a slightly larger tent with an American flag posted outside. Ben didn't knock. He pulled the canvas door aside and stepped in. Miller looked up from a stack of papers, his expression immediately hardening. "Turner, you knock before entering." "Sir, we have a situation." Miller set down his pen slowly. "We're in Afghanistan. We always have a situation. The girl who warned us this morning, Amina Hassan. The locals know what she did. Her family's been marked." The captain leaned back in his chair. "The interpreter's kid?" "Yes, sir." Miller was quiet for a moment. He picked up a coffee mug, took a sip, set it down. "That's unfortunate." "Unfortunate?" Ben felt heat rising in his chest. "Sir, she saved our lives. I understand that. Then we need to protect her. Extra security. Maybe move the family to where, Sergeant? Miller's voice was sharp now. We're not running a refugee service. We have orders. Protocols. Ben stepped forward. With respect, sir, that little girl put herself at risk for us. We owe her. We owe her gratitude. Not our entire operation. Miller stood, his posture rigid. I'll look into it. See what resources we can spare. But I'm not making promises I can't keep. He paused. Unlike some people, the jab landed. Ben held the captain's gaze. Permission to provide the family with additional supplies, sir. Medical kit. Extra rations. Miller waved a hand. Fine. Do what you need to do. Just don't create more problems than we already have. Yes, sir. Ben turned and left before his anger could spill over. 20 minutes later, Ben stood outside Hassan's tent with a small canvas bag. Inside was a medical kit, bandages, antiseptic, pain relievers, and 2 protein bars he'd saved from his own rations. Hassan emerged, Amina behind him. The girl's dark eyes peeked around her father's legs. I wanted to give her this. Ben knelt, bringing himself to Amina's level. For being so brave. Hassan translated softly in Pashto. Amina hesitated, then stepped forward. Her small hands reached out and took the bag carefully, as if it were made of glass. Thank you, she whispered in English. Ben's breath caught. Her voice was so quiet, so fragile. You're welcome. He smiled gently. You know, back home, I have a little girl too. About your age. Amina tilted her head, curious. I haven't met her yet, Ben continued. But when I do, I'm going to tell her about the bravest girl I ever met. He touched his chest. Dr. Soldier, is that what you called me? Amina nodded shyly. Dr. Soldier. Something shifted in Ben's chest. A warmth he hadn't felt in months. This connection, small as it was, felt like sunlight breaking through dust. Hassan placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. Say good night. Good night, Dr. Soldier. Ben stood and watched them disappear into the tent. Later, lying on his cot, Ben stared at the canvas ceiling. The distant thrum of helicopters echoed across the valley. Somewhere out there, the Taliban planned their next move. Somewhere closer, a little girl slept clutching a medical kit. He thought of his own daughter, safe in Virginia. He thought of Amina, hunted for doing the right thing. His jaw tightened. I will protect her, he thought, whatever it takes. 2 days later, the morning briefing felt different. The air inside the command tent was thick with tension. Ben stood among the other soldiers, his arms crossed, waiting. Captain Miller entered with a folder tucked under his arm. His face was unreadable. Listen up! Miller's voice cut through the low murmur of conversation. We've received new orders. Strategic reassignment. We're pulling out of this sector at 0600 tomorrow. The room erupted in whispers. Ben's heart sank. Tomorrow? Corporal Reyes spoke up. Sir, we just got here. I don't write the orders, Corporal. I follow them. Miller opened the folder, scanning the page. We're needed further north. Intel suggests insurgent activity requires our immediate attention. Pack your gear. We move at dawn. Ben's throat tightened. He raised his hand. Sir, what about the locals we've been working with? Hassan and his family? They'll be fine, Turner. No, sir, they won't. Ben stepped forward. Amina's been marked. They've received threats. If we leave now... Miller's jaw clenched. Sergeant, this isn't a debate. With respect, sir, that girl saved our lives. We can't just abandon her. The tent went silent. Every eye turned toward Ben. Miller closed the folder slowly. Step outside with me, Turner. Ben followed the captain out into the harsh sunlight. Miller walked several paces from the tent, then turned sharply. You need to get your head straight. Miller's voice was low but fierce. I understand you feel grateful. I do too. But we have orders. Then let me arrange protection. Safe passage. Something. We don't have time for paperwork. You know how long these things take. Refugee status, vetting, security clearances. Miller shook his head. By the time any of that clears, we'll be halfway across the country. So we do nothing? We do our job. Miller's eyes hardened. You're a good medic, Turner. One of the best I've seen. But you're not a diplomat. You're not a humanitarian worker. You're a soldier. Act like one. Ben's fists clenched at his sides. She's 8 years old, and there are thousands like her. Miller's voice softened slightly. I wish we could save them all, but we can't. The captain walked back toward the tent, leaving Ben standing alone in the dust. An hour later, Ben found Hassan near the supply depot. The interpreter's face looked drawn, older somehow. They're moving us out, Ben said quietly. Hassan nodded. I heard. I tried to talk to Miller. He won't budge. Of course not. Hassan stared at the distant mountains. Men like him follow orders. It is what keeps them sane in places like this. Ben pulled out a small notebook. I'm going to file a request. Get your family refugee status. It'll take time, but time is what we do not have. Hassan's voice was hollow. Before Ben could respond, a woman approached. She wore a dark blue headscarf and carried herself with quiet dignity. Ben recognized her. Fatima Rahimi, the local schoolteacher. She'd helped translate during medical visits. Excuse me, Sergeant. Her English was careful but clear. May I speak with you both? Of course. Fatima glanced around, then lowered her voice. Hassan's home was attacked last night. A rock through the window. There was a note. Hassan closed his eyes. What did it say? Ben asked. Traitor's child. Fatima's expression remained calm, but her hands trembled slightly. The family is staying with me now, but it is not safe for long. Ben felt fury rise in his chest. Did you report it? To whom? Fatima met his gaze. The local police fear the Taliban more than they fear Allah. Reporting does nothing but paint bigger targets. Hassan spoke quietly in Pashto. Fatima nodded, then turned back to Ben. There may be another way, she said. I have contacts with an aid convoy. They transport supplies to Kabul twice a month. Sometimes they take passengers who need to disappear quietly. Ben straightened. When's the next convoy? 4 days, maybe 5. Fatima paused. It is dangerous. The roads are not safe. But it is a chance. Can you arrange it? I can try, but I need time to make contact. And money. These things are not free. Ben pulled out his wallet. He had $300, emergency cash he'd kept since deployment began. He handed it all to Fatima. Whatever it takes. Fatima's eyes widened. This is too much. It's not enough. Ben looked at Hassan. We're getting your family out. Hassan gripped Ben's arm. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. At dusk, Ben climbed the watchtower. The sun bled red across the horizon, painting the mountains in shades of amber and shadow. Below, soldiers loaded equipment into trucks. The convoy would leave at dawn. Static crackled over the radio, clipped to his vest. All units, prepare for convoy departure. 0600 hours. Repeat. 0600 hours. Ben gripped the metal railing. His knuckles went white. 4 days until the aid convoy. 1 day until his unit left. The math didn't work. He stared at the village in the distance. Somewhere in those mud-brick homes, Amina slept, clutching the medical kit he'd given her. Somewhere, her father sat awake, wondering if tomorrow would bring soldiers or killers. Ben's jaw tightened. I'm not leaving her behind, he muttered into the wind. Late that night, Ben slipped into the radio tent. The canvas walls muffled the sounds of the camp outside. He pulled a map from the stack near the communications equipment and spread it across the folding table. The coordinates blurred together under the dim lantern light. He traced the route with his finger, village to valley to highway. 30 miles, maybe more. Looking for something? Ben's head snapped up. Corporal Reyes stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Couldn't sleep, Ben said quietly. Right. Reyes stepped inside and let the tent flap fall shut behind him. He glanced at the map, then at Ben's face. You're planning something stupid. I'm planning something necessary. Same thing in the army. Reyes moved closer, studying the map. His expression was unreadable. How stupid are we talking? We? You think I'm letting you go alone? Reyes shook his head. Miller's got first watch duty tonight. He'll be occupied until 0400. That gives you 6 hours till he notices. Ben felt something tight in his chest loosen. Reyes, don't thank me yet. Just tell me what you need. An hour later, Ben crouched in the shadow of a crumbling wall near the village edge. Hassan appeared from the darkness, moving quickly and quietly. Fatima followed close behind. Did anyone see you? Ben whispered. No. Hassan's voice was tight with tension. Amina is with my sister. She thinks we are meeting you to discuss translation work. Fatima unfolded a worn piece of paper. The convoy leaves from here. She pointed to a spot on Ben's map. A warehouse on the east side of the valley. They will carry medical supplies to Kabul. There is room for 3 passengers if they stay hidden. What about checkpoints? Ben asked. 2, maybe 3. Fatima's finger traced the route. The militants control the northern pass, but if we take the southern route through the valley… That's the long way, Hassan interrupted. It adds 8 hours. It also adds safety. Fatima met his eyes. The southern route has fewer patrols. The convoy driver knows it well. Ben studied the map. The valley route wound through rough terrain, but it avoided the main roads. When does the convoy leave? Day after tomorrow. Sunrise, Ben calculated quickly. His unit would be gone by then, but if he could get Hassan's family to the warehouse tonight, they could wait there until the convoy arrived. We need to move them now, he said. Hassan's face paled. Now? But, Amina, we'll be safer hidden at the warehouse than staying here another day. Ben looked at both of them. Pack light. Only essentials. Meet me at the north gate in 1 hour. 40 minutes later, Ben knelt in front of Amina in Fatima's small home. The girl watched him with those solemn, knowing eyes. She wore a simple green dress and clutched her red scarf. We're going on a trip, Ben said gently. A long one, to a city far from here. Amina nodded slowly. It's going to be scary sometimes. You might want to talk or cry, but you have to stay very quiet. Can you do that? She nodded again. Ben showed her a series of hand signals. 1 finger meant stop, 2 meant go, a closed fist meant hide. Let's practice. He held up 1 finger. Amina froze immediately. 2 fingers. She took a careful step forward. Closed fist. The girl dropped to a crouch, small and still as a stone. Ben felt his throat tighten. She learned too fast. No child should know these things so well. Good, he whispered. Very good. Amina reached out and touched his hand. Dr. Soldier, keep me safe? Yes. Ben squeezed her small fingers gently. I promise. Before leaving, Ben returned to his bunk. The other soldiers slept soundly around him. He pulled out a piece of paper and a pen. The letter came slowly. His hand shook as he wrote. Rachel, if you're reading this, something went wrong. I need you to know I'm sorry. Sorry I wasn't there when Emma was born. Sorry I might not make it home. But I need you to understand why. There's a little girl here, 8 years old. Her name is Amina. She saved my life. Now her life is in danger because she helped us. I can't leave her behind. I won't. When I look at her, I see Emma. I see what our daughter might face if the world forgets how to be kind, how to be brave. I love you both more than anything, but this is something I have to do. Always, Ben. He folded the letter carefully and found Reyes outside the tent. In case something happens, Ben said, handing it over. Reyes took the letter without opening it. Nothing's going to happen. Just keep it safe. Yeah. Reyes clapped him on the shoulder. Now go. Clock's ticking. The convoy engines rumbled to life before dawn. Pink lights spread across the eastern mountains like watercolor. Ben moved through the pre-dawn darkness, loading the last of the supplies into the transport trucks. Hassan's family crouched in the back of a covered cargo vehicle, hidden beneath tarps and crates. Fatima had arranged it perfectly. They looked like nothing more than bundled supplies. Ben approached the truck and knelt by the tailgate. Through a gap in the canvas, he could see Amina's face. She held her red scarf tight against her chest. She raised 2 fingers. Go. Ben's chest ached. He lifted his hand in a small wave. The girl smiled. Barely, but enough. The truck's engine coughed and caught. Slowly, the convoy began to roll forward. Ben stood in the dust, watching the vehicle carry Amina toward the pink-lit mountains. For the first time in days, something like hope flickered in his heart. The convoy crawled through the rocky pass like a metal snake. Dust billowed behind the trucks, coating everything in a fine brown powder. Every bump and pothole jolted through Ben's spine as he rode in the lead Humvee. He lifted his binoculars and scanned the ridges. Nothing moved except heat shimmer rising from the rocks. "See anything, Sergeant?" the driver asked. "No." Ben lowered the binoculars. "But that doesn't mean much out here." Behind them, Fatima rode in the covered cargo truck with Hassan and Amina. Ben had checked on them an hour ago. The little girl sat wedged between supply crates, her red scarf clutched in both hands. She'd given him a small nod when their eyes met. The convoy rounded a bend. Ahead, the pass narrowed between steep cliffs. Ben's radio crackled. "We've got a problem up front." He grabbed the handset. "What kind of problem?" "Goats. Whole herd blocking the road." Ben leaned forward, squinting through the windshield. Sure enough, a mass of brown and white animals filled the narrow pass. A shepherd stood among them, waving his staff. "Just goats?" Ben asked. "Just goats," the driver confirmed. But something felt wrong. The air pressed too close. The silence between radio calls stretched too long. "Stop the convoy," Ben ordered. The vehicles ground to a halt. Dust settled slowly around them. Ben climbed out of the Humvee, his boots crunching on gravel. He scanned the ridges again. Empty. Still. Too still. He raised his hand in a signal for silence. The other soldiers stopped talking. Even the engines seemed to quiet. Ben's heart hammered against his ribs. His fingers found the grip of his rifle. The lead truck exploded. The blast tore through the air like thunder. Metal shrieked and twisted. Fire bloomed orange and black against the brown landscape. The shockwave knocked Ben sideways. His ears rang. Before he could move, gunfire erupted from the cliffs. Bullets pinged off metal. Soldiers shouted. Someone screamed. Ben's training took over. He sprinted toward the burning lead truck, keeping low. The driver stumbled out, blood streaming down his face. Ben grabbed the man's vest and dragged him behind the Humvee. "Stay down!" Ben yelled. More gunfire rattled from above. The militants had perfect position on the high ground. They poured bullets down into the convoy like rain. Ben's radio crackled with frantic voices. "Contact! Contact! We're taking fire from the North Ridge! Get those civilians under cover! Medic! We need a medic!" Ben's mind flashed to Fatima and Amina. The cargo truck sat exposed in the middle of the convoy. He had to reach them. He sprinted between vehicles, zigzagging as bullets kicked up dirt around his feet. His lungs burned. Smoke stung his eyes. "Fatima!" he shouted. "Get down! Get the children down!" A figure appeared at the back of the cargo truck. Fatima, eyes wide with terror. She ducked back inside as another burst of gunfire stitched across the canvas. Ben dove behind a supply crate. His hands shook as he checked his rifle. Around him, soldiers returned fire, their shots echoing off the canyon walls. Movement caught his eye. An armed man crept along the ridge, moving toward the cargo truck from the side. The militant raised his rifle, aiming down at the hidden families. Ben tried to line up a shot, but debris blocked his view. The man's finger touched the trigger. "No!" A child's voice cut through the chaos. Amina stood at the edge of the truck bed, pointing directly at the militant. "There! Bad man there!" Her shout gave away their position. The militant swung his weapon toward her voice, but it also gave Ben his shot. He fired 3 rounds. The militant jerked backward and fell. Other soldiers heard Amina's warning. They turned their fire toward the ridge where she'd pointed. 2 more militants fell. "Get her back inside!" Ben roared. Hassan's hands pulled Amina into the truck. The canvas flap dropped closed. The battle raged for what felt like hours, but was only minutes. Ben moved between wounded soldiers, applying pressure to wounds, shouting for supplies. His hands slipped on blood. Smoke choked the air. Finally, the distant thump of helicopter rotors echoed through the canyon. Reinforcements. The militants retreated up the cliffs like shadows, disappearing into caves and crevices. Their gunfire faded, then stopped. Ben's ears rang in the sudden quiet. He straightened slowly, looking around. 3 vehicles burned. Bodies lay scattered. The wounded moaned. "Fatima!" Ben called. "Hassan!" No answer. He ran to the cargo truck and yanked open the back flap. Empty. Supply crates lay scattered and torn. Blood stained the wooden floor. "No! No! No! No!" Ben jumped down and circled the vehicle. "Amina! Hassan!" The other soldiers were securing the perimeter. Nobody had seen where the families went. Ben's chest tightened. He sprinted toward the ridge where the militants had been, calling their names until his voice went hoarse. The rocky slope rose steep and treacherous. He climbed, slipping on loose stones, grabbing at scrubby bushes for balance. "Amina! Can you hear me?" Only silence answered. Ben reached a small plateau. Smoke drifted past. The smell of burning fuel filled his nose. Then he saw it. A thorn bush near a cleft in the rocks. Something red fluttered from the branches, caught by the wind. Amina's scarf. Ben stumbled forward and grabbed it. The fabric felt soft and familiar in his shaking hands. He turned in a slow circle, scanning the rocks, the caves, the empty sky. "Amina!" His voice cracked. "Amina, where are you?" The scarf danced in his grip, alive with wind. But the little girl was gone. Night swallowed the valley. Fires crackled in the twisted metal of wrecked vehicles, throwing orange light across the rocks. Shadows danced like ghosts. Ben knelt beside the cargo truck, the red scarf still clutched in his fist. His flashlight beam swept across the ground, searching for footprints, blood, anything. "Sergeant Turner." Reyes approached from behind. "We need to secure the perimeter before full dark." "Not yet." Ben stood and moved toward the ridge. "Not everyone's accounted for. The civilians scattered during the attack. They'll come back when it's safe. Amina won't." Ben climbed over a fallen boulder. "She's 8 years old and terrified." Reyes hesitated, then followed. "I'll help you look." They spread out, calling into the darkness. Their flashlight beams crisscrossed the rocky slope. The wind carried their voices away into nothing. Ben's light found a depression between 2 large stones. He scrambled toward it, heart pounding. Empty. Just shadows and wind-scoured rock. "Amina!" His voice echoed through the canyon. "It's Dr. Soldier! You're safe now!" No reply. He moved deeper into the ravine, his boots slipping on loose gravel. The darkness pressed close. Behind him, other soldiers searched in pairs, their lights bobbing like fireflies. A shout rose from near the destroyed convoy. "We've got someone!" Ben ran back, half sliding down the slope. His knees hit the ground beside a cluster of soldiers. They'd found someone lying near an overturned crate. Fatima. Her face was pale, a gash across her forehead still bleeding, but her chest rose and fell. Alive. "Get the medic kit," Ben ordered. His hands moved automatically, checking her pulse, her breathing, feeling for broken bones. Her eyes fluttered open. Unfocused at first, then clearing. "Fatima." Ben leaned close. "Where's Amina? Where's Hassan?" She tried to sit up. Ben steadied her. "Hassan." Her voice came rough and weak. He ran toward the village to get help. And Amina? Fatima's eyes filled with tears. She saved us again. What do you mean? A man came toward the truck. He had a gun. Fatima touched her head wound, wincing. Amina saw him. She jumped out and ran, made noise, drew him away from us. Ben's stomach dropped. She ran where? Into the hills. Up there. Fatima pointed toward the dark ridges. She was so small, so fast. I tried to follow, but… She gestured at her injured leg. Which direction exactly? North, toward the caves. Fatima gripped his arm. She said, her mother taught her, when you see fear, make it small by doing good. She ran to save the others. Ben stood. His flashlight beam swept the northern ridge. Nothing but rocks and shadows. Amina! His voice broke on her name. Amina! Please, answer me! The canyon caught his words and threw them back. Amina! 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 But no small voice replied. He started toward the ridge again. Reyes caught his arm. Sergeant, there could be militants up there still. I don't care. You'll get yourself killed. Then I get myself killed. Ben pulled free and climbed. The rocks bit into his hands. His flashlight showed only stone and thorns. He called her name until his throat went raw. The sound of helicopter rotors grew louder. Reinforcements arriving. Evacuation coming. Ben kept searching. Every shadow could be her. Every sound might be her voice. Amina, it's safe now. You can come out. His light found a small cave opening. He squeezed inside, sweeping the beam across the walls. Empty. He backed out and moved higher. The helicopters descended, their rotors whipping dust into swirling clouds. Soldiers shouted coordinates. Wounded men were loaded onto stretchers. Captain Miller's voice boomed across the rocks. Turner, get down here! That's an order! Ben ignored him. He climbed higher, calling into the wind. Heavy boots scrambled up behind him. Miller grabbed his shoulder and spun him around. We're pulling out. Now. Not without her. She's gone, Turner. We have to evacuate. I'm not leaving her. Ben's voice shook. She saved my life. She saved all our lives. And you tried to save hers. You did everything you could. Miller's face softened slightly. But we can't stay here. It's too dangerous. Just a few more minutes. We don't have a few more minutes. Miller's voice hardened again. You get on that helicopter, or I'll have you carried on. And when we get back to base, you'll face disciplinary action for insubordination. Your choice. Ben looked past him toward the dark ridges. Somewhere up there, a little girl hid alone in the night, terrified, waiting for someone to find her. His hands shook. The red scarf hung limp in his grip. Reyes appeared beside them. Sergeant, Fatima's asking for you. They half walked, half carried him down to the landing zone. Fatima sat on a stretcher, medics wrapping her leg. Her eyes met Ben's. I'm sorry, he said. I couldn't find her. You will. Fatima touched his hand. She believed you'd find her. She said Dr. Soldier always helps. The words hit him like physical blows. He turned away, unable to speak. Soldiers loaded into the helicopters. The wounded went first, then the others. Miller pointed at Ben, and then at the open door. An order without words. Ben climbed aboard. The engine's roar drowned out thought. The helicopter lifted, tilting as it rose. Through the open door, Ben looked down at the valley. Fires still burned in the wreckage. Smoke drifted through the canyon. And there, barely visible in the darkness, a small red scarf fluttered from a thorn bush on the ridge. The wind pulled at it, making it dance. The last trace of Amina. The helicopter banked and turned toward base. The valley fell away below them. Ben closed his eyes. Guilt settled in his chest like a stone, heavy and cold, and impossible to move. The transport plane touched down at dawn. Cold Virginia air rushed through the open door, so different from Afghan dust that Ben almost didn't recognize it. He descended the metal stairs slowly. His duffel bag felt heavier than it should. Emily stood at the edge of the tarmac. She held their daughter against her chest, wrapped in a pink blanket. The baby's face was tiny, perfect. Her eyes were closed. Ben walked toward them. Each step required effort. Emily's smile trembled. Tears ran down her cheeks. "Welcome home." He stopped in front of her. She looked just like he remembered. Same brown hair, same gentle eyes, but everything felt wrong somehow. Distant. "Hi," he said. She shifted the baby to one arm and reached for him. He let her pull him close, but his body stayed rigid. "She's beautiful," he whispered. "Her name is Sarah. I told you in the letters." "I know. I remember." But the letters felt like they'd been written to someone else, someone who belonged here. Emily pulled back, studying his face. "Are you okay?" "Just tired. Let's go home." Home. The word felt strange in his mouth. The house hadn't changed. Same blue shutters, same oak tree in the front yard, same welcome mat by the door. But Ben walked through it like a stranger visiting someone else's life. Emily made coffee. The baby slept in a bassinet by the couch. Normal sounds filled the rooms, the refrigerator humming, birds singing outside, the coffee maker gurgling. Ben sat at the kitchen table and stared at nothing. "Do you want to hold her?" Emily asked. He looked at the baby. So small, so fragile, like Amina. "Not yet," he said. Emily's face fell, but she nodded. "Okay, when you're ready." The nights were worse. Ben couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the explosion, saw the burning convoy, felt the red scarf in his hands. He'd get up and walk through the house, stand by Sarah's bassinet, and watch her breathe. Make sure she was real. Make sure she was safe. Emily found him there one night at 3 a.m. "Ben." Her voice was soft. "Talk to me. There's nothing to talk about. You barely look at me. You won't hold our daughter. You haven't smiled once since you got home." He turned away. "I'm just adjusting. It's been 3 weeks. 3 weeks." Was that all? It felt like years. Emily touched his shoulder. "What happened over there?" "Nothing I want to talk about. You used to tell me everything. That was before." His voice came out harder than he meant. She flinched. "Before what?" "Before I let a little girl die. Before I failed the one person who trusted me. Before I proved I don't deserve this peace. Before I saw things," he said instead. Emily's hand dropped. "I'm here when you're ready." But he couldn't tell her. How could he explain that he'd come home to the family he'd dreamed about, only to feel like he'd left his heart in an Afghan valley? 6 weeks after his return, Emily gave him Chaplain Evans's phone number. "He helped my cousin after Iraq," she said. "Maybe he can help you." Ben stared at the number for 2 days before calling. They met at a small coffee shop near the base. Evans was older, gray-haired, with kind eyes that had seen too much. "Tell me what's weighing on you," Evans said. Ben told him everything. Amina's whisper, the ambush, the search in the darkness, the red scarf caught in the thorns. "I left her there," Ben finished. "I got on that helicopter and left her." "You were ordered to leave." "Doesn't matter. She trusted me. She called me Dr. Soldier." His voice broke. "And I abandoned her." Evans was quiet for a long moment. "You can't carry that weight forever, Ben. It'll crush you." "I deserve to be crushed." "No." Evans leaned forward. "You deserve to honor her courage. And the best way to do that isn't by destroying yourself. It's by serving again." "I can't go back." "I don't mean going back to Afghanistan. I mean serving here. The refugee center in D.C.? They need volunteers, medical staff especially." Ben shook his head. "I can't face refugees. Not after—" "After what? After failing to save one?" "Ben, there are thousands who need help right now. Families fleeing the same violence that took Amina. You can't save her, but you can save others." The words settled in Ben's chest, heavy but different than the guilt. This weight felt like purpose. I'll think about it, Ben said. 3 days later, he drove to Washington, D.C. The Refugee Resettlement Center occupied an old church building. Inside, families sat in folding chairs. Children played with donated toys. Women in headscarves sorted through boxes of clothes. Ben approached the front desk. "I'm here to volunteer." The coordinator, a tired-looking woman named Maria, lit up. "Are you the medic who called?" "Yes, ma'am." "Thank God. We've been desperate for medical help." She handed him a badge. "Can you start today?" He could. She led him to a converted Sunday school room, now serving as a clinic. Basic supplies lined metal shelves. An examination table sat in the corner. "Most of what we need is simple," Maria explained. "Check vitals, treat minor wounds, document health issues for asylum applications." Ben nodded. His hands already knew the work. Families came through all afternoon. He checked children for fever, bandaged scraped knees, listened to elderly hearts. Each face reminded him of Afghanistan. But this time, he could help. This time, he didn't have to leave. The center closed at 6. Ben stayed late, organizing supplies. The building grew quiet. He was sorting through a box of donated toys when something tumbled out and clattered across the floor. A small wooden camel. Ben's breath caught. He picked it up slowly. It was identical to the one he'd given Amina. Same carved details. Same worn paint. His hands trembled. The camel felt warm in his palm. "You can't just vanish, kid," he whispered to the empty room. The vaccination drive started at 9. Ben arrived early to set up the converted Sunday school room with supplies. Vials of vaccine sat in coolers packed with ice. Sterile needles lay arranged on metal trays. Cotton swabs and adhesive bandages waited in neat rows. Through the door, he heard children's voices. They echoed off the church's old wooden floors. Some laughed. Others cried softly. Parents spoke in languages Ben couldn't understand, but worry sounded the same in any tongue. Maria poked her head in. "We've got about 40 kids today, mostly new arrivals from the last transport." "I'm ready," Ben said. He'd been volunteering for 3 weeks now. The work steadied him. Each child he helped felt like a small repayment. Not enough to erase his guilt, but enough to let him sleep sometimes. The first families began filing in. Ben smiled at nervous mothers. He made silly faces at crying toddlers. His hands moved with practiced efficiency. Swab, inject, bandage, praise. "You're so brave," he told a little boy who didn't flinch. "Very strong," the boy's mother translated. The child beamed. Around 11, Ben paused to check his paperwork. Names and dates blurred together on the forms. He rubbed his eyes. Outside in the waiting area, more families arrived. Chairs scraped across floors. A baby wailed. Someone sneezed. Ben reached for his water bottle. Then he heard it. "Dr. Soldier?" The voice was soft, barely audible above the noise, but it cut through everything else like a blade. Ben's hand froze halfway to the water. His heart stopped. He knew that voice. Slowly, so slowly, he turned toward the doorway. A little girl stood there. She wore clean jeans and a donated sweater 2 sizes too big. Her dark hair was pulled back with a simple clip. She'd grown thinner. Her face looked older somehow, marked by experiences no child should know. But her eyes were the same, wide and solemn, and far too wise. Amina. She clutched a red scarf in both hands. Ben couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The room tilted sideways. Behind Amina stood Fatima, the schoolteacher. She looked tired but whole. Her hand rested gently on the girl's shoulder. "Ben," Fatima said quietly, "we made it." The words didn't make sense. Ben's mind couldn't process them. Amina was gone. He'd searched the valley, found only her scarf. This couldn't be real. "Amina?" His voice cracked on her name. The little girl nodded. She took one hesitant step forward. Ben's knees went weak. He grabbed the edge of the examination table to steady himself. "How?" The word came out as barely a whisper. Fatima stepped into the room. When the shooting started, I pulled her into a cave. We hid there for 2 days. The scarf, she gestured to the red fabric in Amina's hands. It caught on branches when we ran. I thought we'd go back for it. But the valley became too dangerous. Ben shook his head. The pieces wouldn't fit together. But the search. We looked everywhere. The caves go deep into the mountains. We stayed hidden until we saw the blue helmets. UN peacekeepers. They found us 3 days later. 3 days? Ben's voice broke. You were there for 3 days. We had no water left when they came. Fatima's own voice wavered. But Amina kept saying her doctor soldier would find us, that we just had to wait. Ben looked at the little girl. She watched him with those 2 serious eyes. Why didn't anyone tell me? He asked. Why didn't I hear? The aid workers took us to Kabul first, then processing camps. There were so many people, Ben. So much paperwork. Everything moves slowly in war. Fatima's hand tightened on Amina's shoulder. It took 5 months to get resettlement approval. We only arrived in America last week. 5 months? Ben had spent 5 months believing she was dead. 5 months drowning in guilt. 5 months certain he'd failed her, and she'd been alive the whole time. His legs gave out. He dropped to his knees on the floor. The tears came suddenly, violently. They burned his eyes and choked his throat. His shoulders shook. I'm sorry, he gasped. I'm so sorry. I should have kept looking. I should have. Small arms wrapped around his neck. Amina hugged him fiercely. Her thin body pressed against his chest. The red scarf dangled between them. You did keep looking, she whispered in his ear. Her English had improved. Fatima said you wouldn't leave the valley. You stayed until they made you go. Ben pulled her closer. He buried his face in her hair and wept like he hadn't since childhood. I thought I lost you, he choked out. Mama said brave hearts find each other again, Amina whispered. Her small hand patted his back awkwardly, trying to comfort him. She said if you love someone, heaven brings you back. Ben closed his eyes. Thank you, he prayed silently. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The morning sun filtered through bare branches. Ben stood at the park entrance, watching Emily push their daughter's stroller along the walking path. His hands felt clammy despite the cool November air. They're here, he said quietly. Emily turned. Her eyes found the small group approaching from the parking lot. Fatima in a burgundy headscarf, Hassan carrying a worn backpack, and Amina between them holding that same red scarf. Ben waved. His chest felt tight. Remember what I told you, he said to Emily. Just be patient. They've been through a lot. Emily touched his arm. I know. The 2 families met on the grass near the playground. For a moment, everyone stood awkwardly silent. Then Amina stepped forward. She looked at the stroller with curious eyes. Your baby? She asked Ben. Yes. He knelt down. This is Lily. And this, he gestured to Emily. This is my wife, Emily. Emily crouched beside him. Her smile was warm and genuine. Hi, Amina. Ben's told me so much about you. He told me about you too, Amina said softly. He showed me your picture. In Afghanistan. Emily's eyes glistened. She glanced at Ben, then back at the little girl. I'm so glad you're safe now. I'm so glad you're here. Amina shifted closer. She peered into the stroller where Lily slept, bundled in pink blankets. She's very small, Amina whispered. 4 months old, Emily said. I think she looks like him. Amina pointed at Ben. Emily laughed. The sound broke the tension like sunlight through clouds. Everyone says that. Hassan stepped forward, extending his hand to Emily. Thank you for welcoming us. Your husband, he saved our lives. Emily shook his hand firmly. Amina saved his first. They spread blankets on the grass. Fatima unpacked bread and cheese she'd brought. Emily produced apple slices and cookies from her bag. Lily woke up fussy, and Amina watched with fascination as Emily fed her. Can I sit close? Amina asked. Of course. The little girl settled beside Emily, observing every detail of the baby's tiny fingers and delicate features. Were you scared when she was born? Amina asked suddenly. Emily paused. A little, but mostly excited. My mama was scared when I was born. Papa told me. Amina spoke matter-of-factly, but then she said I was worth all the fear. Emily's throat tightened. She reached over and gently squeezed Amina's hand. Your mama was right. Over the following weeks, the families grew closer. Ben and Emily helped Hassan and Fatima find a small apartment near the refugee center. It wasn't much, 2 bedrooms in an older building, but it had heat and running water and safety. Emily organized donations. Neighbors contributed furniture, dishes, winter coats. She spent an entire Saturday helping Fatima arrange the kitchen while Amina and Hassan unpacked boxes. You don't have to do all this, Fatima said, folding donated towels. I want to. Emily lined a shelf with contact paper. Your family now. Fatima's eyes welled up. Family, she repeated softly. Within a month, Fatima secured a position teaching ESL at the community school 3 blocks away. Her first paycheck brought tears of relief and pride. They began sharing Friday dinners, sometimes at Ben and Emily's house, sometimes at the apartment. Hassan taught Ben how to make proper Afghan tea. Amina helped Emily bake chocolate chip cookies, carefully measuring each ingredient. Laughter filled rooms that had known too much silence. One evening in December, Amina arrived at dinner carrying a small notebook. She set it carefully beside her plate. What's that? Ben asked. Poetry. She spoke the word like it was precious. Fatima helps me write it. In English and Pashto, both. Can I hear one? Emily asked. Amina's cheeks colored. She opened the notebook with careful hands. The pages were filled with her careful, slanted handwriting. This one is called The Silence, she said quietly. She read in a clear voice. In the dust, I saw his eyes, kind like Papa, sad like goodbyes. The bad men waited in the shade, but silence is a choice I made. Mama said brave is very small. Just one voice can save us all. The table fell quiet. Emily wiped her eyes. Hassan's jaw worked silently. Ben cleared his throat. That's beautiful, Amina. I write about things I remember, she said simply, so I don't forget the important parts. Later, while they washed dishes, Ben asked her the question that had haunted him for months. Why did you warn me that day? You didn't know me. You could have stayed hidden. Amina dried a plate carefully. She thought for a long moment. Because you smiled like you meant it, she said finally. When you gave the vitamins to the other children, most soldiers don't smile like that. They smile with just their mouths. She touched her own lips. But you smiled with your eyes, too, like you really wanted us to be okay. Ben's hands stilled in the soapy water. Mama told me before she died. She said good people have light in them, even in dark places. And when you see light, you have to protect it. Amina looked up at him. You were light, so I protected you. Ben had to grip the counter. The simple truth of her words cracked something open inside him. Not pain this time, something else. Hope, maybe, or faith. Thank you, he whispered. You're welcome, Dr. Soldier. The following Saturday they all returned to the park. The weather had warmed unexpectedly, a brief reprieve before winter's full arrival. Amina ran ahead across the grass. The red scarf streamed behind her like a banner. Her laughter rang out clear and pure. Emily stood beside Ben, holding Lily. She's healing, Emily said softly. So am I, Ben replied. He watched the little girl spin in circles, arms outstretched, face turned toward the pale sun. Hassan and Fatima sat on a bench nearby, talking quietly, content. Amina noticed Ben watching. She waved both arms. He lifted his hand and waved back. Then, for the first time since coming home, Ben smiled, really smiled, the kind that reached his eyes and warmed his chest and meant something true. The kind Amina had recognized all those months ago in the dust of Afghanistan. The kind that said, "You matter. You're safe. There's still goodness in this world." The kitchen table was covered in construction paper, crayons, and crumpled drafts. Amina sat with her notebook open, chewing her bottom lip. Ben leaned back in his chair across from her, a mug of coffee cooling in his hands. "Read it again," he said gently. "From the top." She nodded. Her fingers trembled slightly as she turned the page. "The silence that saved a life," she began. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "In the market square where dust hangs low, I saw the soldier with the gentle glow. His hands gave medicine, his smile gave peace, but hidden guns waited for war to release." She paused, looked up at Ben. "Keep going," he encouraged. "You're doing great." Mama's voice inside my head said clear, "When you see danger, make fear disappear." So I whispered soft, just 2 small words, the quietest sound the soldier ever heard. Ben's throat tightened. He set down his mug. "Don't speak," I said. "Don't move. Don't turn. Sometimes silence is the lesson we must learn." He listened to a girl he didn't know and lived to see his baby daughter grow. Amina's voice grew steadier now. "Now I am here where winter trees stand tall, where no one hides with guns behind the wall. But I remember dust and fear and choice, how courage sometimes has the smallest voice." She finished and closed the notebook. Her eyes found his. "What do you think?" she asked. Ben couldn't speak for a moment. His chest felt full of something he couldn't name. Pride, maybe, or gratitude so deep it hurt. "I think," he said finally, "that your mama would be so proud of you." Amina's face lit up. "Really? Really?" He reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You're going to do amazing on Friday. But what if I get scared? What if my voice stops working?" Emily appeared in the doorway, Lily on her hip. "Then you look for one kind face in the crowd," she said, "and you speak just to them." "That's what I do when I'm nervous." "Which face?" Amina asked. "Mine," Ben said. "You find me, and you just talk to me. Okay?" Amina nodded slowly. "Okay, Dr. Soldier." Friday afternoon arrived cold and bright. The elementary school gymnasium buzzed with voices and activity. Tables lined the walls, displaying projects about countries around the world. Paper flags hung from the ceiling. Children ran between booths, eating samples of different foods. Ben stood near the back with Emily and Lily. Hassan and Fatima sat in the 3rd row, reserved seats for family. Veterans from the local VFW post filled several rows. Refugee families clustered together on the left side. Some women in headscarves, children fidgeting in their chairs. The principal stepped to the microphone. "Our next speaker is very special," she said. "Amina Hassan is 8 years old. She came to us from Afghanistan just a few months ago. She's going to share a poem about courage." Applause rippled through the gym. Amina walked to the small stage. She wore a simple blue dress Emily had bought her. Her red scarf was tied around her wrist like a bracelet. She carried her notebook with both hands. Ben's heart hammered. "You can do this, kid." Amina reached the microphone. It was too tall. A teacher adjusted it downward. The gym fell silent. She looked out at the crowd. Her eyes were wide, searching. Then she found Ben. He smiled, nodded once. Amina took a breath, opened her notebook. "This poem is called The Silence That Saved a Life," she said. Her voice was small but clear. She began to read. The words floated through the gymnasium. Simple, honest, devastating in their innocence. When she reached the line about her mother's voice, her own voice wavered. But she didn't stop. Ben's hand moved to his chest, pressed against his heart. Around him, people listened with absolute attention. A veteran in the 2nd row wiped his eyes. A woman in a headscarf held her daughter close. Hassan's shoulders shook silently. "Now I am here where winter trees stand tall, where no one hides with guns behind the wall. Emily gripped Ben's arm. Tears streamed down her face. But I remember dust and fear and choice. How courage sometimes has the smallest voice. Amina closed her notebook. Silence held for 3 heartbeats. Then the applause began. It started with the veterans. They stood first, clapping hard. Then the refugee families rose. Then everyone. The sound filled the gymnasium like thunder. Amina stood on the stage, looking small and overwhelmed. But she was smiling. The principal hugged her. Teachers surrounded her with praise. But Amina's eyes searched the crowd again. She found Ben, and she ran. She pushed through the standing crowd, past chairs and tables, until she reached him. He knelt down, and she threw her arms around his neck. "You did it," he whispered. "You were so brave." She pulled back. Her fingers worked at the scarf on her wrist. She untied it carefully. "What are you doing?" he asked. Amina reached up. She pinned the red scarf to his shirt, right over his heart. Her small hands pressed it flat against the fabric. "You keep it," she said softly. Her dark eyes held his. "You listened when I said don't speak." The morning air carried the bite of late November. Ben walked through Riverside Park with his hands in his jacket pockets, the red scarf folded carefully against his chest. American flags lined the walkway, snapping gently in the breeze. Veterans Day. The park was quiet this early, just a few joggers and dog walkers breaking the stillness. Ben's boots crunched over fallen leaves. He thought about last year. Deployed, exhausted, counting days. He thought about the convoy, the ambush, the scarf caught on thorns. He thought about miracles. One whisper. Don't speak. That's all it took to start the chain. A little girl's courage saving his life. His determination to save hers in return. The impossible reunion. The poem that healed more than just him. Sometimes he still woke in the night, hearing gunfire. But now, when his eyes opened in the dark, Emily was there. Lily slept peacefully in the next room. And somewhere across town, Amina was safe. The nightmares were losing their grip. Ben reached the cafe near the fountain. Through the window, he spotted them already inside. Amina's dark hair catching the light. Fatima beside her sipping tea. He pushed through the door, warmth washing over him. "Dr. Soldier!" Amina jumped from her chair and ran to him. He caught her in a hug, lifting her briefly off the ground. "Morning, kiddo." "You're late," she scolded, but her eyes danced. "Traffic," he said, setting her down. Fatima smiled from the table. "Good morning, Ben. Please, sit." He settled into the chair across from them. A waitress brought coffee without asking. They'd been meeting here every Sunday for weeks now. It had become their ritual. "Lily is not with you today?" Fatima asked. Emily took her to visit her parents. "Girls' Day out." Ben wrapped his hands around the warm mug. "She sends her love." Amina pulled a folded paper from her backpack. "Look what I made." She spread it on the table. A drawing in crayon and marker. Stick figures holding hands in front of a house. Labels in careful letters. Ben, Emily, Lily, Amina, Baba, teacher, Fatima. "That's us?" Ben asked. "Our family," Amina said simply. His throat tightened. He studied the drawing, the oversized sun, the crooked flowers, the hearts floating in the sky. A child's vision of the world made right again. "It's perfect," he said. The waitress brought pancakes for Amina, eggs for the adults. They ate and talked about small things. Amina's English class, Hassan's new job at the community center, Lily's first tooth coming in. Normal things, beautiful in their ordinariness. Fatima set down her fork. "Amina has something to tell you." The girl looked up, syrup on her chin. "I know what I want to be." "Yeah?" Ben leaned forward. "What's that?" "A doctor." Her voice was full of certainty, like Dr. Soldier. Ben blinked, looked at Fatima, who nodded encouragingly. A doctor, he repeated, so I can help people who are hurt. Amina wiped her mouth with her napkin, so I can make them not scared anymore. The coffee cup felt heavy in Ben's hands. He set it down carefully. That's wonderful, Amina. Will you teach me? She asked. Teach you? How to be brave when people are scared. How to help them. He thought about battlefield medicine, about holding pressure on wounds while explosions shook the ground, about telling lies to dying men. You're going to be fine. Stay with me. But he also thought about kindness, about the moment he knelt in that village square and smiled at children who had every reason to fear soldiers. Yeah, he said quietly. I'll teach you. Amina beamed. They finished breakfast sharing stories. Fatima described her new classroom, how the students reminded her of the girls she taught back home. Amina recounted her week, a math test, recess games, a library book about birds, life, moving forward. When they stood to leave, Amina pulled the red scarf from her backpack. She tied it carefully around her wrist, the way she always did now. A reminder, a symbol. Same time next week? Fatima asked. Wouldn't miss it, Ben said. Outside, the morning had grown brighter. The flags rippled with more energy now. Families were starting to arrive for the Veterans Day ceremony later. Amina spotted the playground across the park. Can I go swing? Stay where we can see you, Fatima said. Amina ran off, her scarf streaming behind her like a ribbon. She reached the swings and kicked off, pumping her legs, climbing higher. Ben and Fatima stood watching. She has nightmares still, Fatima said quietly, but fewer now. Me too. You gave her hope, Ben. When she had none left, he shook his head. She saved me first. Perhaps you saved each other. On the swing, Amina laughed as she soared upward. The scarf rippled in the wind, catching the sunlight, red threads glowing like fire. Ben felt something settle in his chest, something that had been restless for so long, finally coming to rest. Peace. Not the absence of memory, not forgetting, but the quiet certainty that what was broken could be mended. That darkness didn't get the final word. He whispered, almost to himself. Sometimes, the smallest whisper is the loudest act of courage. A gust of wind lifted his hair. He looked skyward, past the flags, past the bare branches, into the vast blue morning. The war was behind him now. That chapter closed. And ahead, something new was opening. Hope. I hope you enjoyed that story. Make sure to like and subscribe so that you do not miss out on tomorrow's story. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy.